Imagine waking up to a world where a government's leader is taken out of power not by elections or protest, but by a military operation ordered by another country, carried out in the dead of night, and then flown to a foreign courtroom thousands of miles away. That is exactly what the world witnessed in the first days of January 2026. As the United States carried out a highly controversial military intervention in Venezuela that resulted in the capture of President Nicolás Maduro and his wife, a development that has shaken global politics, raised questions about international law, and affected how people everywhere think about sovereignty, power, and the future of one of Latin America's most troubled and once wealthiest nations. On January 3, 2026, a United States military operation called Operation Absolute Resolve launched strikes in Venezuela, including in Caracas, and succeeded in capturing President Nicolás Maduro and his wife, Cilia Flores, at a fortified residence before flying them to New York City to face criminal charges in a U.S. federal court, where both have pleaded not guilty to charges including narco-terrorism, drug trafficking, and weapons offenses. This intervention was the most direct U.S. military action in Latin America in decades, and was justified by the U.S. government as a law enforcement operation targeting drug trafficking and corruption, although critics argue it violated international law and principles of sovereignty. To fully understand why this happened, we have to look at more than a decade of political turmoil, economic collapse, and accusations of authoritarianism in Venezuela. Maduro and his government have been accused by both the United States and other countries of eroding democratic institutions, rigging elections, and presiding over a state entangled with powerful drug trafficking networks, allegations that led U.S. prosecutors to indict him years earlier on narco-terrorism charges. In the months leading up to the operation, the U.S. built up military forces near Venezuelan waters, conducted airstrikes against alleged drug trafficking boats, and pursued economic pressure including sanctions and seizures of assets, signaling escalating tension and showing that this intervention was prepared over time rather than spontaneous. The rapid military action and capture of Maduro came amid growing frustration from the U.S. administration over the inability of sanctions and diplomacy to change the situation in Venezuela. But it also triggered immediate debate and backlash around the world, because it involved force in a sovereign nation without United Nations authorization. Immediate reactions inside Venezuela. Back in Venezuela, the political situation remains extremely tense and uncertain. Maduro's capture did not automatically end his claim to leadership. He described himself as a prisoner of war and denied all charges in U.S. court. Venezuelan authorities responded by detaining journalists and restricting independent reporting, showing that media freedom remains under pressure even amid these dramatic events. Vice President Delcy Rodriguez was quickly sworn in as interim president by Venezuela's Supreme Court, which has often aligned with Maduro's government, and this move has deepened divisions inside the country about who truly holds legitimate power now. This means that even though the U.S. removed Maduro from power physically and legally, political authority inside Venezuela is still contested and could lead to continuing conflict. International response. Global reaction to the U.S. intervention has been sharply divided. Many world leaders, including members of the United Nations Security Council, condemned the operation as a violation of international law, stating that it breaches the UN Charter's core principles by using force against another sovereign state without authorization. Countries like Russia, China, and several Latin American states criticized the move as dangerous for global stability, emphasizing that even leaders accused of crimes deserve legal processes that respect sovereignty. Other governments and political figures, particularly those opposed to Maduro's regime, welcomed the development, seeing it as a potential step toward accountability and change in Venezuela, though with caution over the precedent that military intervention may set. This international debate underlines a deep split in global diplomatic views. Some emphasize sovereignty and international norms, while others focus on justice, governance failure, and human rights abuses. The human and regional impact. Beyond politics and law, these events have real consequences for people. Humanitarian conditions in Venezuela have been dire for years, with shortages of food, medicine, and basic services that predate this intervention, meaning the population continues to face serious hardship. Neighboring countries such as Colombia and Brazil are preparing for possible increases in migration and instability as people seek safety and opportunity beyond Venezuela's borders. The situation illustrates how political upheaval can compound long-standing economic and social suffering, affecting millions not only in Venezuela but across the region. Economic and global financial implications. Financially, the crisis has some indirect implications. Venezuela has the world's largest proven oil reserves, but production has collapsed in recent years due to mismanagement, sanctions, and lack of investment, meaning its direct impact on global oil markets is limited at the moment, although long-term shifts could affect energy planning and regional investment. Markets responding to geopolitical unrest often see increases in safe haven assets such as gold and the US dollar, and energy stocks especially may react to news about future involvement in Venezuelan oil infrastructure. The broader lesson for global finance is that geopolitical risk always influences investment decisions, even when direct market impacts remain modest in the short term. In summary, the past days in Venezuela mark one of the most remarkable and controversial developments in recent international affairs, where the capture of a president accused of severe crimes, debate over international law, regional stability, and humanitarian crisis all intersect in a way that continues to unfold, and where the world's response shows that politics, justice, and power remain deeply contested both inside Venezuela and on the world stage.